So, greetings, friends. Welcome to Free Range Thinking, and here we are again in our cozy recording caves, ready to dive into some interesting topics and rabbit holes. I'm Sharon Lee.
I'm Alex Carl, and I beg Sharon to read the rest of the intro because
I can
otherwise I
hear your
sound
voice
all
is
the
all
time.
scratchy. Well, every week, we serve up a delicious buffet of neurodivergence topics, discussions, and questions and explorations around the subject of living as a neurodivergent human. We enjoy talking about and celebrating how people like us can not only thrive in today's world, but prosper, because the world desperately needs neurodivergent humans to bring real transformation and evolution to mankind. We are the keys through the shitstorm of a one-size-fits-all world, and that is no joke. Yes, yes, yes. So, Alex recommended a book. So I was listening to on Audible because I'm doing a lot of garden work right now in the fall, and he recommended The Secret of Secrets by Dan Brown. And normally I'd be like, ugh, Dan Brown, really? And even though, I mean, the writing is good, they're like, ripping adventures, and but and sometimes it's like, okay, is this bullshit? It's like, yeah, I know this is bullshit, and he's really stretching it and for a lot of things, and but the writing is good. It's easy to digest, and yeah, and they're good to listen to when you're out doing garden work.
And Dan Brown is always on top of the lists of books for people with aphantasia because there's so much action in it and not that much of describing. There's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of like para-scientific, but it's still interesting information. So for me, Dan Brown is one of the authors I can read. This The Secret of Secrets I listen to because I like the German narrator really much. But he writes in a way that I keep in my ADHD keeps being interested all the time. And it's not the big problem with aphantasia because he doesn't describe that much, and when he describes things, then he researches the locations. Like Secret of Secrets takes place in Prague, for example, so you can look up all the destinations so that I have a really picture that I can look at if I want to.
Right, because the books are full of real landmarks and real scientific studies, and they're so full of real things, but then it's a fictional story around that. And the thing that struck me right out of the gate was that it's like, okay, he listened to the telepathy tapes, and probably was like, although I'm sure he was writing this book before the telepathy tapes, because it takes a while to write and publish, although he kind of churns them out. Anyway, so yeah, I'm guessing because it was the subject matter of the altered consciousness, and expanded consciousness, and what is consciousness, what is the soul, this type of thing. So I was curious about, like, okay, where's he gonna take this, and how ridiculous is this gonna be?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I noticed there's this groundswell. You hear me talking about it a lot, the groundswell of connectivity in the world, that I watch and listen for it, and I certain terms start being repeated in different areas, online, in the news, in books, in music, in movies. And it's kind of like, okay, we've reached another level, and that we're all talking about this thing now. And for example, self-development, we're at a point never before in history with self-development. So now the saturation point of people understanding certain terms. there's still that thing, like, when we started out, we would say neurodivergent to certain people, and they would be like, well, what is that? And I still get that,
And
that response, but not as much as
we
when
as
we
well
started doing
switched.
the podcast.
In the beginning, we often talked about neurodiverse people and understood on the way, or we get the knowledge on the way that the more correct term is neurodivergent and not neurodiverse, because everybody's neurodiverse, but not everybody's neurodivergent.
Exactly.
So
things like this.
We developed our own language and our own understanding about that as well in the process.
And of course, people still debate that, which is fine. I don't need everybody in agreement. It's good to have diverse opinions and languaging, and we still need to chew on it, and we still need to discuss it. But yeah, so I noticed a lot of things in the book that made me, kind of like, yay, and the inside about, okay, if it's in a Dan Brown book, which is being consumed and digested, and it changes minds, because this guy, he's very prolific, and he publishes in so many other languages as well. And so it's like, okay, this is touching a lot of people. So the whole time I was reading it, I was recognizing that at the same time. I'm like, ooh, at a certain concept. And I'm like, haha, I wonder how that's going to hit in this culture. Oh, that's interesting. So I kept, every once in a while, I would have to, pause it, and I would like think about it a little bit. But it was, yeah. So to go back to the thing about the consciousness, and that, they were talking about out-of-body experience. And I thought, like, one of the main characters is the love interest of the guy. What was his name? Alex?
Robert Langdon. Robert Langdon?
Robert. Yeah. Robert. And so he that guy's the same. It's the same. He uses that character quite a bit. And
yes, always.
So this love interest of his is, she's a journalist and a researcher, and I might be getting that totally wrong, which one is in front, but it's in noetics. I had to look it up. I'm like, wait, what are these things? Because I forget. I looked them up before, and then I'm like, then I forget it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, because I wanted to be sure, like, what does she do? And so she's on the edge of stuff that is, that can't be proven, or to date, it cannot be proven. And, but she sets the groundwork, which is funny, because it's the kind of that thing with the telepathy tapes. It's like, you can't say it's not true just because you can't prove it, but it's an interesting concept to think about, and the fact that people can self-heal, and the things that have been proven to date, because it like walks you down that path of the possibility, of other things that are outside of our comprehension, because the shape of the world used to be outside of our comprehension. So anyway, there's this whole thing that he goes through, that he takes the reader through in terms of logic, which is on two sides. Number one, it's great because it forces people to have an open mind. On the other hand, it's also the introduction to fuzzy logic. And so I'm laughing as I'm listening to it. I'm like going, haha, that's a two-way street right there. But it's great for the premise of a book, in terms of, and a great lesson in presenting something or some information where you want to open doors, let's say, just in an easy way to say that. But I liked it, in that and also some of it is hard to talk about without giving it away, because I don't want to do any spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one of the things that the main thing that really struck me was that, and I'm not giving away really anything, it's not a plot thing to it, but there is a definite I would say thought process towards the end, where somebody says, well, doesn't this mean that it's hopeless, in the world as it is now? And one character was saying, no, actually, it actually gives us hope, because the world has never been more connected, and blah, 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 and started saying all this stuff. And I was like, going, oh my God, that's like right out of my mouth. And it has nothing to do with consciousness or telepathy or anything like that, but it's like all the stuff that I say about how I feel and what I see, that humanity, even though a bunch of stuff is really fucked up, that we are taking some evolutionary steps, and that creatives and neurodivergence, it's like, okay, this is our time, and we need to push back, and we need to push forward. And it's the imagining the future. And I was just like, what they were saying, what the character was saying, and I was like, yes, Dan, yes. Yes, Dan Brown. And yeah, that made me very happy, knowing instantly, because my voice is like, a drop in drop in the void. But his voice and his writing reaches everybody. And will now, and people will read that, and they will write some other things. They will create other things. They, art. They will create movies. They will, create music, and they will be affected by this. And that makes me very happy. Yeah. And so it's a definite tipping point of somebody grasping and spreading the message that nonlinear thinkers and neurodivergents and people who are really thinking outside the box and pushing the boundaries of what is known, it's like, now's the time.
Yeah.
And it's not, there's no quick fix, there's no magic pill, but we're in it. It's no longer leading up to that. We are definitely in it right now.
We are definitely in it. And I would also say there are already forces that try to fight it back and try to suppress it again, because they realize it's going to be really, really dangerous for them. It's not only Trump and USA and Russia, it's a lot of countries that realize, like countries, that right-wing led countries that realize, that we try to suppress like dreams like that, I would say, or
yes.
Movements like that.
They try and keep people separated and against each other. Yeah, but you can see it, and what's great is when they talk about how they're doing that systematically in this book. That is interesting. Because you need, and again, it's like we need the writers. It's that thing that I always say, a society is only as advanced as its artists. Now, I didn't say that. That's a quote. I forget who said it. I have to look it up every time. I think it's because I haven't found who said it. I think it's just always says anonymous. But I didn't make that up. But wow, it's so true. And the thing is that they try, and this is like the trying to squash the comedians. This is what's going on with this. It's the, squash the creative, squash the people speaking truth, because it's dangerous for people who want to have control over everything. Yeah. And so it's that the little bit of rebelliousness, because I'm not a marcher I can't go out in crowds like that. So I just do my little rebellious acts, daily rebellious act, creative acts. This is you do what you can do. You do what you can do. Now, if I was rich, I'd be throwing money at it. I'd be throwing money at creatives and artists and go, hey, you know, make a film about this and do this subject, write, a screenwriter, hey, write this.
I
But
just this morning, listened to a podcast with Cornelia Funke. Cornelia Funke she's a German author of children and young adult books. I think the most famous book is Tintentod, so ink or Tintentod, Tintenherz, like Ink Heart and Ink Death.
Yeah.
And Reckless is another series that she wrote, which is for older young adults. And she ended up living in Italy. She lived in the States and she lived in England, but the last 10 or so years she's living in Italy near Florence, I think. And she has what she described. It's a 4.5 hour interview or so, the podcast, and I'm only an hour in. But she described that she has a little farm there in Italy, and she started to invite young artists, mostly female. She said in the last 2 or 3 years she started to invite some male artists as well, but first she concentrated on female artists. And she said it's so cool to see that she has she's a trained illustrator. She started with illustration and then she got into writing. And she said, like, oh, those 2 girls behind the podcasters visited her and they're talking in her house. The 2 behind you, maybe we can ask them. And the one is a graphic artist as well, and the other one is a journalist and writer. And together they got in contact with one of the documentary filmers that also visited there and started to do a documentary about a topic they were all into. And I immediately had to think about you, Sharon, that I thought that's something that Sharon should do. And then she said, I get so many mails from readers who said, hey, can we meet you, or can we come and see your farm there? And she said, that's my home and it's already crowded and I don't want to have any more people in my home here. So she bought another farm and built it like a center where more artists can be, and they have workshops there, and they're building all the crafting workshops there.
What's her name?
Cornelia Funke. So Cornelia and Funke, Funke, which means spark. It's almost like funky.
Okay. Yeah.
But in German it means spark.
Spark. Oh, nice name.
Yeah, and she now has the second farm and builds this out to a center where more artists can work together, but also you can write her and say, hey, I really want to meet you, and she always has 2-hour slots. And then she invites people to visit the other farm for 2 hours and meets the people there, and they can ask her questions and let her sign a book and get a tour around the farm. And so it's really, really cool. And I mean,
that is totally.
She's the most successful German fantasy writer, I guess, still.
Yeah, she writes, I'm looking at it, she writes author of children's fiction. Yeah, The Thief Lord, The Dragon Rider, and Inkheart. Yeah. Wow, cool. No. Thanks for that tip and telling us about her. That's really cool. Because yeah, you know me, I want to do a summer camp. And it was funny because right when I was talking about, you know, how we do the ripple effect and how we push humanity forward and instigate, it's I would love to do like and I said, you know, I would love to, if I said if I had money, this is what I exactly said, if I had money, I'd be throwing money at, you know, filmmakers and screenwriters, and all of a sudden it popped into my head, well, why couldn't we do that now? You know, you don't have to wait till you have money. So it's like I should probably send out an invitation everywhere and say, hey, let's you know, do a screenplay.
For example, yeah.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, you know, the Jane McGonigal thing. It's the imagining of it. It's the imagining of it and fleshing it out. And this is exactly kind of what Dan Brown has done, is fleshed out and imagined, you know, what this is going to look like and what it can look like. And it's just the jumping off point of before the turning point, you know, before the pendulum starts, you know, to swing the other way from being really shitty in the world. But you know, there's hope.
So such prolific or such writers with a massive reach, and I'm pretty sure that Secret of Secrets already, it was released 2 weeks ago or so, or 3 weeks ago, and I'm pretty sure it already in the millions of sold copies worldwide,
and in all languages, because he has a reach that's
and in all it's accessible because you immediately get it as an audiobook nowadays, and getting or making people aware of those things and those different working brains, I think helps a lot. Because neurotypical people get a glimpse into what it means or what it could mean to be neurodivergent, and how neurodivergent features can play out or manifest themselves. And it's just, I mean, the whole neurodivergent part of Secret of Secrets, it's just the core.
It's just they don't make it the center of it. And in fact, that's what I find fascinating, is because they used him as the skeptic voice, because people trust that character. And I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. But even though he doesn't like kind of believe, or he's skeptical or whatever, doesn't mean he doesn't have an open mind. And the fact that he doesn't necessarily agree with the stuff that this woman is studying or talking about or teaching and lecturing, and he's kind of like, well, he goes, I don't know, but he doesn't, he comes at it, and it shows how to come at something and position oneself as a skeptic without being condescending, without being judgmental. It's powerful, powerful stuff. I want to just, And I just wrote down on here, it's like, ooh, also put out a notice about having a book discussion about it. Yeah, because I could just talk about it, because it's like the modeling going on with the characters of how do you open up and allow in different ways of thinking without, giving up your opinions or giving up your thing, because that's what people think. They have to give up something and give over to and accept something, let go of their own beliefs in order to believe something else. And that's not so. And as somebody here who holds multiple things simultaneously, it's like, what is that saying? Strong opinions lightly held.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that so much. And it's like, sure, I have opinions and sure, I have viewpoints. And it's like, and I'll hold them until I get in a conversation with somebody who, and I don't mean pivots or you don't have to change my mind, because it's like, please don't come at me like that. But it's like, it gets richer. There's more like fractals, or there's more depth, to our knowledge and experience and opinions. The more that we open our minds and have discussions and listen to what people have to say and listen to perspectives and stories. Yeah. And I love the way, you could still stay on the side of being a protector, and kind of and not do what's right, as in somebody's opinion is right and somebody's opinion is wrong. But what's the kind thing to do, and how do you keep people safe?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean physical safety, sure, emotional safety as well. But it's like, do no harm.
Mm-hmm.
Rule number one: do no harm. And so the way that Robert Langdon models this, I think, is really quite something. And Dan Brown's character in doing that, and how he positions himself, and he shows how the character feels and what he's thinking, and what his behavior is. It's great. In that aspect, it is phenomenal. It seems like a simple story. Woo! There's so much more to it.
There is that's something I heard in another interview with another author who said, like, when I write, he writes more or less only non-fiction books. I think he wrote 1 or 2 fiction books, but more or less non-fiction. And he said, and that fits exactly in that what you just said. When I write, I just write a text that is full of gaps, and every reader fills out the gaps differently. So I don't write for the readers, but I write with every individual reader, because they make of my book what is relevant for them, and they fill in their own experiences in everything they read. And I think especially with something like Secret of Secrets is it is really strong to think like, okay, you get this scaffold of a story, almost a complete house, but then you carry in your furniture yourself, and you finish the story in your head or in your mind when you read it or listen to it, and you fill in your own experiences, and you draw connections that Dan Brown couldn't imagine. I'm pretty sure he couldn't imagine what you or me or everyone else might be able to connect with the story or interpret it between the lines. And there's so much, even because it is a quite simple thriller story, so it's not that complex, and it doesn't have multiple timelines or political intrigues or a really big cast of characters also that you have to understand. It's easy to understand,
Yeah.
but you can put so much into the whole story.
True. Yeah. There's so I'm saying it's a great vehicle. Um yeah, I would love to know what, his thinking. So now I have to I haven't done it because I've got other stuff to do. I was like, don't do it, don't start. You start googling Dan Brown interviews about the book. What did he mean? What did he? Yeah. But yeah, it's like what. But again, as an artist and a creative, it's like with fiction, you could take it anywhere. But this is how we teach each other, the storytelling.
Yeah.
Top-notch storytelling to evolve the masses.
And that again, I hope I get it right now. That's something Cornelia Funke said today. She said, "I'm not a writer, I'm not an illustrator. I always say I'm a storyteller." And if somebody asks me what I do, and she was talking about there was some, when she was living in the US, there was some kind of school shooting take place. And she wanted to do something for this school. I think it was an elementary school or so younger kids. And she went to her publisher and said, "Hey, can you hook me up with this school and if I can do a reading there or so?" And they weren't able to do that or to manage that. And then she did a reading night, a reading show, and somebody let her sign the book and told her, like, "Hey, I think it was a teacher from that school or so." And she said, "Oh, I wanted to hook up with your school and my publisher didn't manage it. And can I do a reading or some kind of, can I help in some way?" And he said, "Yeah, sure, we figure things out." And then she said she was on the way to this reading in the school and was like, "Oh, how arrogant am I that I think that I can do anything for those poor kids who live through that?" And she got really nervous and she was really, am I totally over the top here, or shouldn't I do that?
No.
And then she was in the class and she brought all of her books, but she pulled out this Dragon Rider book, which is the lightest one of all, and she said, "Hey, okay, which stories would you like to hear, and what would you like me to read?" And she said all the kids were like, "Reckless, we wanted to hear Reckless," which is the darkest of all and the most meaning or the most mean stories. And she said, yeah, those kids lived through the really, really dark, the darkest moments that you can live through, and they wanted something they can relate to. They didn't want to hear the light and fun story.
And people think that kids aren't ready for stuff like that, and they try and shield kids, but it's like the shielding of kids doesn't do them any favor. For example, it's like kids that grow up on in a rural situation where they have lots of pets and there's farm animals and and you get very well acquainted with death.
Yes.
And the kids who are very live in very sanitized lives where they're very protected in that aspect, and if a pet dies, the parents, and they happen to have parents that say, well, no, they just went on a trip or whatever. You can't. The kid doesn't get a chance to grieve. The kid doesn't get a chance to learn. So the kid ends up taking fear of death into adulthood. And so it's
what
so
happened to me as a kid. Yes.
It's so important.
When you just watch Disney movies and every time something was on the TV about situations of animals in farms, or for example, my mom always changed the channel or said, "Oh no, I can look, and I can't look." And later, when I was older, I was like, "Mom, you are eating them, so you can also watch how they
Right.
have to live. So that's totally
Right.
bigotry what you are doing here."
Right.
But that
Yeah.
was because I was on a farm every summer, and was there when they slaughtered pigs or chicken, for example. And those are some of the most important experiences that I can remember.
Yeah. Yeah. And kids can handle this stuff.
Yes.
Kids can hold the duality. Whereas adults, by the time we start reaching teenage years and past the teenage years, and it starts to polarize, and you have to pick one or the other. It's the good and the bad, and but kids, they're like, they're more malleable, and they understand that it's just innately they understand the duality of things. That it's sad, that Fluffy has passed away, has died, but at the same time, Fluffy had such a good life, and you gave Fluffy a good life, and Fluffy gave you a good life, and there's the richness of such a simple interaction and a lesson, a chance for a really rich lesson that later on in life, that you're not so afraid of somebody leaving you or abandoning you. Now, granted, this is if, other things are in balance, because, some families do a real number on us. So it's, it's not all rainbows and Disney puppies and but that gives a kid a chance. If you don't, if you didn't grow up in a culture where there's a doomsday type of thing, and overprotectiveness, is sheltering, because there's the sheltering totally, and then there's the doomsday thing of like, we're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. You are too, and it's life sucks.
Yeah, I mean, when you don't learn as a kid that death is a really, really important part of life.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that it's happening like in normal day life to pets. Or I can remember when my mom was a kid, like in the 50s, 60s, it was totally usual that people who died were for 3 or 4 days were put in the house.
I
Like
know, right? And I
in the
always
coffin.
think, like, doesn't that smell? Doesn't that smell? I mean, in the summertime? Are you kidding me? This is like northern countries, right? Because in the southern country, around the southern hemispheres, or in the if you're anywhere near the equatorial region, I mean, like, are you serious? I always wonder about that. Like, how bad would that smell? Curious minds. I can guess. I can fantasize about that. Yeah, isn't this a cherry subject matter that we're on in the podcast right now? So in the footnotes, in the blurb, you'd be like, "Oh, we talked about this, and we talked about death." But it's they mention that in the Dan Brown writes about that, and the characters say that they with all the testing. The scientists that say all the testing and polling and talking to humans, the biggest fear is death.
Yes.
And the mystery of what happens, like what happens, what, and it's true. This is true. So it's like, I love the fact that he uses things that are absolutely human truths that we all live with, and some of us fear that more than others. And we've talked about this before, that it's like, okay, it's more the method, because I don't want to be burnt and I don't want to be squished. But Yeah, well, it's the suffering going out, the really painful suffering going out. You say, yeah, no thanks. Even cancer. Cancer, to me, okay, it's a long, slow, it's not pleasant. Certain types of illnesses. But there's being squished would be fairly quick, but maybe half my body squished, because that would be really, really fucking painful. But that's what I wouldn't want that. But the act of like not being here anymore, it literally doesn't bother me. Where I know that for a lot of people that I know,
that bothers me more than if I'm going to be squished or burned or drowned or whatever. That the thing that what might I miss? What might I don't experience then anymore? I mean,
but you're not going to care because you're not going to be there anymore. It's or
as
maybe we are still
here,
conscious.
As long as I'm here, and as long as I can think about that, that is the thing that is most bothering me.
Okay.
When I'm dead, then it can't bother me anymore, I guess. Of course, but now it's the most part of it is the what might I miss then, or what can I not experience then anymore.
Yeah, that's the ultimate FOMO.
Yes, it's totally ultimate FOMO. Fear of missing out everything. I think when I'm maybe when I'm 95 and I say to myself, okay, I experienced everything I wanted to experience, and maybe then sometimes it's okay, now it's okay, or now it might be okay, but from today it would be the thing that
but see, to me that feels like that feels like a losing battle, because it's like, okay, is there a bucket list? It's okay, now I'm done, right? And then for me, I'm never going to be done. But when it happens, and it's just the thing. But I'm never going to be done. I'm never going to not want to do something else, or read another book. Read another book or see something.
There are people.
It's not a driving accomplishment success thing. It's
no, it's not. It's not that. But those people I really experienced when they died, they were fine with it. They were like, okay, now it's okay.
Which brings me to the GABA.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the GABA.
That is one of the most fascinating things in Secret of Secrets. Like the scientific explanation. I think that's not a big spoiler. The scientific explanation for example, why do so many people with near-death experience say that their whole life rushes in front of them, for example?
Right. So the GABA is there's GABA receptors. Oops, I went past the actual. GABA is a gamma aminobutyric acid, and what they do, it is the neurotransmitter that slows down brain activity and reduces stress, anxiety, and fear. The people with the highest levels of GABA are very young infants, monks who do a lot of meditation, and people who are on the threshold of death when we get flooded. And yeah, I find this fascinating. It has there's a lot of implications, because my brain went on farther. I had to pause, and this is one of the things I had to think about. I'm like, wait, what? And I had to back it up, and I had to Google the GABA. And this is, I think I mentioned this recently, and again, with permission from my wife, But they were raised, she and her brother were raised in a very stressful situation in terms of the mother would be like, everything was fearful. The mother grew up in an alcoholic family and then raised her kids with, and she wasn't doing it intentionally, she just didn't know any different. And she was a very young mother when she had Lydia. And so both of Lydia and her brother were raised kind of with alcoholic thinking, and everything was dramatic and everything was the end of the world, and it's just like, we're all going to die, and really stressed them out as little kids. Plus, Lydia had a hearing handicap. She didn't, she was trying to navigate the world like that. And so the stress levels in the family, except for the father, he drank a lot, but I know why. And, but I know that's so judgmental of me. I'm a horrible person. Anyway, get me off the track. But it's like they are revving, Lydia and her brother. It's like when their feet hit the floor in the morning, they might appear calm, but they're literally revving up around like 7, 8, and 9 on a stress level. It takes very little to push them over the edge into like anxiety and anger. And a lot of times it comes across as anger, but what it is fear. And Lydia was telling me that when we were having the discussion, we were on a road trip, she was saying that it's really obvious that her mother, when her mother's feet hit the floor, she's on 10. She never comes off 10. She's just always like that. Which makes sense considering the crappy childhood that she had. So the thing is that when people are living their life like that, you're talking PSTD. Level of chemicals being flooded to the central nervous system. And you can look, everybody can look this stuff up. It's everywhere. It's common. It's all over the place. I'm not going to name all the chemicals because I can't keep it in my head straight. But the GABA, it's like, okay, how do you access the GABA? And so I immediately, after I heard this in the book, I was like, oh, wow, that's so interesting. I was like, Lydia, when she came home, I was like, Lydia, listen to this. Because if you can picture it, it's then you can work on accessing it. Because if somebody says, just calm down, just meditate. Well, meditate on what? But I love knowing the chemicals because it's like the gut microbiome. All of it's connected. And so it's like eating the right thing and then telling your gut to, microbiome system, it's like, here's the good stuff. And help me lower the GABA or help me raise the GABA, but speak to your system, speak to because it's, we hear ourselves talk to ourselves. And it's important to do that in a way that you would want to be spoken to. So you speak to your consciousness and subconscious how you wish somebody would always speak to you, and in a gentle, kind way. But the practice of raising the GABA, and it makes me wonder, is that what I have? And I was like, how do we test this? Because is that why my baseline, is like, okay, granted, I'm guessing it's nowhere near like an infant, a monk's, or somebody who's dying. But I do wonder, because in comparison to most people I know, I'm not normal. And so I'm absolutely obsessed with it now. It's like, where do I get this measured? Where do I know all I have to do is Google. But yeah, if anybody knows anybody who knows anybody and you're in France, like, hook me up, please. I want to be a lab rat. Yes, please.
Yeah, and I mean, there are also like parallels between GABA levels and ADHD. So that might be really interesting to
Yeah.
look into if there's something that you can measure. Yeah.
Yeah. And they briefly touched in the book, they briefly touched on hallucinogenics. And I loved how, she was like, well, have you ever used it? And they were like, no, I just, no, I wouldn't. So again, the position of the skeptic, whether he has or not, but the character is in the position with a lot of people who is like, yeah, no, I would never do that. Which a lot of people reading the book have not and will not ever. But yet, keeping an open mind. Yes, I found that fascinating because also the experiencing altered states from whatever manner, hypnosis. Ooh, I got to plug in my battery. Yikes! It's gonna cut out in a second and totally kill the recording. Hold on, let me run out here. But it's so that you can also make a bridge with uses like psilocybin.
So
yeah, we should wrap it up here.
Wrap up.
Because otherwise, I'll go down rabbit holes from here, and then we'll be on here another hour.
That's what we do. That's what we are here for.
So at least we'll press stop recording, and then we can go into other conversations.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I'm going to press stop in a second, and I managed to upload the last episode right after we record. I hope I managed this today again.
Cool.
So until next week, I would say.
Yes, until next week, and I'm going to make some graphics and try and get them on and make an announcement that we're trying to put up all the maybe upload some new episodes and starting to upload the backlog.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Cool.
Until next week.
Then,
Bye,
until
folks.
next week. Bye.